Hello everyone and welcome to another video for the HAES book club. Today we're looking at Hunger by Roxane Gay. And this one is set up a little bit different. There is no introduction. And the mark, like, this is like 1, 2, like they're fairly short. So I figure we'll read like the first 3. 1. Every body has a story and a history. Here I offer mine with a memoir of my body and my hunger. So what this would tell me is there might be like an eating disorder thing here. I'm just like making small predictions as we go. The story of my body is not a story of triumph. This is not a weight loss memoir. There will be no pictures of a thin version of me, my slender body emblazoned across the book's cover, with me standing in one leg of my former fatter self's jeans. This is not a book that will offer motivation. I don't have any powerful insight into what it takes to overcome an unruly body and unruly appetites. Mine is not a success story. Mine is simply a true story. I wish so very much that I could write a book about triumphant weight loss and how I learned how to live more effectively with my demons. I wish I could write a book about being at peace and loving myself wholly at any size. Instead, I have written a book which has been the most difficult writing experience of my life. One far more challenging than I could have ever imagined. When I set out to write Hunger, I was certain the words would come easily, the way they usually do. And what could be easier to write about than the body I have lived in for more than 40 years? But soon I realized I was not only writing a memoir of my body, I was forcing myself to look at what my body has endured. The weight I gained and how hard it has been to both live with and lose that weight. I've been forced to look at my guiltiest secrets. I've cut myself wide open. I am exposed. This is not comfortable. This is not easy. I wish I had the kind of strength and willpower to tell you a triumphant story. I am in search of that kind of strength and willpower. I am determined to be more than my body. What my body has endured, what my body has become, determination, though, has not gotten me very far. Writing this book is a confession. These are the ugliest, weakest, barest parts of me. This is my truth. This is a memoir of my body, because more often than not, stories of bodies like mine are ignored or dismissed or derided. People see bodies like mine and make their assumptions. They think they know the why of my body. They do not. This is not a story of triumph, but this is a story that demands to be told and deserves to be heard. This is a book about my body, about my hunger, and ultimately this is a book about disappearing and being lost and wanting to be seen and understood. This is a book about learning, however slowly, to allow myself to be seen and understood. To tell you the story of my body, do I tell you how much I weighed at my heaviest? Do I tell you that number, the shameful truth of it, always strangling me? Do I tell you I know I should not consider the truth of my body shameful? Or do I just tell you the truth while holding my breath and awaiting your judgment? At my heaviest, I weighed 577 pounds at 6 feet 3 inches tall. That is a staggering number, one I can hardly believe. But at one point, that was the truth of my body. I learned of the number at a Cleveland clinic in Weston, Florida. I don't know how I let things get so out of control, but I do. My father went with me to the Cleveland clinic. I was in my late 20s. It was July. Outside it was hot and muggy and lushly green. In the clinic, the air was frigid and antiseptic. Everything was slick, expensive wood, marble. I thought, this is how I am spending my summer vacation. There were 7 other people in the meeting room, an orientation session for gastric bypass surgery. 2 fat guys, a slightly overweight woman and her thin husband, 2 people in lab coats, and another large woman. As I surveyed my surroundings, I did that thing fat people tend to do around other fat people. I measured myself in relation to their size. I was bigger than 5 smaller than 2. At least that is what I told myself. For $270, I spent a good portion of my day listening to the benefits of having my anatomy drastically altered to lose weight. It was, the doctor said, the only effective therapy for obesity. They were doctors. They were supposed to know what was best for me. I wanted to believe them. So just a quick note, though, about her comparing herself. I think that's true for anyone who is insecure. Like, if you see someone that has something noticeable about something that you yourself are insecure about in your own body, you're going to measure yourself against them. That's just something that happens. And it doesn't even have to be physical. Like, if you see someone performing a skill that you may pride yourself on, you're probably going to compare yourselves. Like, that's just human nature. My point is just that it's not exclusive to fat people. A psychiatrist talked to those of us assembled about how to prepare for the surgery, how to deal with food once our stomachs became the size of a thumb, how to accept that the normal people, his words not mine, in our lives might try to sabotage our weight loss because they were invested in the idea of us as fat people. We learned how our bodies would be nutrient deprived for the rest of our lives, how we would never be able to eat or drink within a half hour of doing one thing or the other. Our hair would thin, maybe fall out. Our bodies would be prone to dumping syndrome, a condition whose name doesn't require a great deal of imagination to decipher. And, of course, there were the surgical risks. We could die on the operating table or succumb to infection in the days following the procedure. It was a good news, bad news scenario. Bad news, our lives and bodies would never be the same if we even survived the surgery. Good news, we would be thin. We would lose 75% of our excess weight within the first year. We would become next to normal. What those doctors offered was so tempting, so seductive, this notion that we could fall asleep for a few hours and within a year of waking up, most of our problems would be solved. At least according to the medical establishment. That is, of course, if we continued to delude ourselves that our bodies were our biggest problem. After the presentation, there was a question and answer session. I had neither questions nor answers, but the woman to my right, the woman who clearly did not need to be there because she was no more than 40 or so pounds overweight, dominated the session, asking intimate personal questions that broke my heart. As she interrogated the doctors, her husband sat next to her smirking. It became clear why she was there. It was all about him and how he saw her body. There was nothing sadder, I thought, choosing to ignore why I was sitting in that same room, choosing to ignore that there were a great many people in my own life who saw my body before they ever saw or considered me. I'm not saying that the woman wasn't there due to pressure from her husband, but sometimes, so I know someone who's very much in that, like, 40 to 50 pounds overweight, and they're, wondering if the doctor will give them weight loss surgery. Not quite, like, where they, like, cut the stomach or anything. I am actually not sure entirely what that surgery consists of, bariatric surgery consists of. But they're, like, wondering if the doctor will give them some form of weight loss surgery. And I'm like, you are not overweight enough to need a weight loss surgery, and they are insistent on trying. So just because that person is only so many pounds overweight doesn't mean that they don't go to those sessions for themselves. Just saying. Later in the day, the doctors showed videos of the surgery, cameras and surgical tools in slick inner cavities, cutting, pushing, closing, removing essential parts of the human body. The insides were steamy red and pink and yellow. It was grotesque and chilling. My father on my left was ashen, clearly shaken by the brutal display. What do you think? He asked quietly. This is a total freak show, I said. He nodded. There was the first thing we had agreed on in years. Then the video ended and the doctor smiled and chirped that the procedure was brief, done laparoscopically. He assured us He had done over 300 operations, lost only one patient, an 850-pound man, he said, his voice dropping to an apologetic whisper, as if the shame of that man's body could not be spoken with the full force of his voice. That is a major assumption. Don't you think that the apologetic whisper is because he feels guilty that he lost a patient? It's not because the man was so fat that it doesn't deserve to be spoken with his full voice. This was the one person that the doctor had lost in an operation. That, I'm sure, carries a significant weight of guilt. So to equate that with him judging this fat person is just so ridiculous. You don't know why he dropped his voice like that, and I think most people would assume it's because he feels guilty about losing a patient, because saving lives is part of what being a doctor is. And even if you recognize that, yes, you're going to lose people as part of the job because you can't save everyone no matter how hard you try, that doesn't mean it's not psychologically difficult. It just goes to show how much she is in her own head there. I was mostly just kind of sitting back reading through this because this is very much about her experience, and like there wasn't really a whole lot for me to say because a lot of this is based just on her experience, but I don't like her assuming that the doctor was judging this fat person when he's talking about the one patient he lost. It's just so crazy to me. The one thing I will say, though, is that I think showing them images of the surgery is a good way to scare a lot of people off. And maybe that's the point. Maybe that's to drive home the severity of the surgery and make sure everyone knows what they're getting into. For me, like with 600-pound life, I have to skip over the surgery sections because I can't stomach it. But I hope that was made clear that they were going to show surgical footage before they started the session to warn people. Because I was in a class once with someone who acted as a medic in the military, and he showed us like the inside of a leg that had been like majorly split open. I was front row, and it was on a projector. It was this huge screen in front of me. I have never like gotten nauseous from an image until that day. I nearly threw up in class because I just couldn't handle the graphic images. I ended up looking down for the rest of his presentation on that one class day. So I think I'm hoping that they at least gave these people a warning, and that they warn people to not eat before they come to this information session because of images like that. So I hope that they were warned. Then the doctor told us the price of happiness. $25,000 minus a $270 discount for the orientation fee once a deposit for the procedure was made. Before this torment was over, there was a one-on-one consultation with the doctor in a private examination room. Before the doctor entered, his assistant and intern took down my vital information. I was weighed, measured, quietly judged. The intern listened to my heartbeat, felt my throat glands, made some additional notes. The doctor finally breathed in after a half an hour. He looked me up and down. He glanced at my chart, quickly flipping through the pages. Yes, yes, he said. You're a perfect candidate for the surgery. We'll get you booked right away. Then he was gone. The intern wrote me prescriptions for the preliminary tests I would need, and left with a letter verifying that I'd completed the orientation session. It was clear that they did this every day. I was not unique. I was not special. I was a body, one requiring repair, and there are many of us in the world living in such utterly human bodies. Okay, to be fair, though, like, for any doctor's office, you're not really unique. You're not really special, with the exception of very few instances. Like, I go into my doctor's office, I'm not unique, I'm not special. I'm there to get checkups and address any medical issues that I need addressed. The doctor cares to a degree, but, like, they spend their whole day listening to people and seeing people like me. And for these people, because they specialize in, like, the massively overweight, they spend their day seeing people like you. It's not that they're dehumanizing you. I think it's just a hazard of the medical practice where you tend to be overly clinical when looking at people. I don't think that that's unique to fat people. I think it's just part of an occupational hazard of the medical field. There's the only like exception, like physical therapist, because I had a workplace injury and I had to go to a physical therapist. I had a fantastic physical therapist. They were so nice and they were so personable and it was lovely. And then the occupational therapist doctor I had was also really amazing and listened to, because my workplace wasn't treating me very fairly. And they were all about making sure that like L&I and stuff paid for my treatment that I desperately needed. So I don't think, I mean, with the very few exceptions, I think doctors are just trying to do their job. And I think to expect doctors that haven't worked with you before to immediately have this warm, personal demeanor for people that come in and out of their office every day, like, as long as they were cordial and polite, I think that's the most you can expect from an initial visit. But perhaps that's just me. Let me know what you guys think. Alright, my father, who had been waiting in the well-appointed atrium, put a hand on my shoulder. "You're not at this point yet," he said. "A little more self-control, exercise twice a day, that's all you need." I agreed, nodding vigorously, but later, alone in my bedroom, I pored over the pamphlets I received, unable to look away from the before and after pictures. I still want, that after so badly. And I remembered the result of being weighed and measured and judged, the unfathomable number 577 pounds. I thought I had known shame in my life, but that night I truly knew shame. I did not know if I would ever find my way past that shame and toward a place where I could face my body, accept my body, change my body. So I'm sorry, but I think her father's wrong. You're not at this point yet. At 577 pounds, I think, yeah, you kind of are. But, let me know what you guys think. This is a possibility for us to read, and maybe we can find more from Roxane Gay and see if... Oh, she's the author of Bad Feminist. So, well, I don't know if that's super, no, because I looked at Bad Feminist, and it was very much more on feminism than fat liberation. So, I don't know, maybe we'll find something else to pair with her book, or we might just read her book alone. But let me know what you guys think, and I will see you next time.